Horror Nights presents 4 true scary subway horror stories. Number 4. Chad Hynes' Last Ride. On February 7, 2016, at about 4:30 in the afternoon, a subway car on the F line in New York City was moderately busy. Many of the passengers on the train were heading to the 5 o'clock church service at Redeemer Presbyterian Church in Manhattan. One person who was on the subway but wasn't heading to church was 19-year-old Chad Hynes. He had been drinking for the better part of the afternoon, and he was on his way to a friend's house to continue partying. While he rode the subway, he was listening to music on a portable speaker. His music, which he played at a high volume, was off-putting and the lyrics were highly offensive, not just to the churchgoers on the train, but to many other people who were forced to listen to it. However, what made it worse was that Hynes was also trying, but failing, to sing along with the music. After about 5 minutes of dealing with the music, 63-year-old Derek Smith got Hynes' attention and said, "Excuse me, can you turn down the music?" Hynes unleashed a stream of swear words at the 60-year-old grandfather who was on his way to church and said, "It's a free country, I can do what I want." Smith calmly listened and then said, "Then it's my right to tell you that you're the load your whore of a mother should have swallowed, you complete and utter waste of DNA." This got Hynes out of his seat, and he made his way over to Smith, who remained seated. Smith said, "You're going to have one shot. You better make it good." However, he didn't even have time to throw a punch, because Smith stood up quickly, slamming his head into the bottom of Hynes' chin. This sent Hynes flailing backwards, and he landed on his back. Hynes obviously suffered a concussion, and Smith had proven his point. But Smith couldn't stop himself. He rushed to the young man lying on the floor of the subway, and using his best Sunday shoes, Smith started stomping on the 19-year-old's face. He didn't stop until his foot got stuck in the mush behind the fractured face bones. That's when Smith realized that everyone else on the subway, which included a dozen children, were screaming. Many people were also throwing up. Amazingly, no one had pressed the emergency stop button, and at the next station, everyone ran out of the train car screaming. Smith sat down beside the body and calmly waited for the police. He was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. When Smith was being transferred back to the prison, a reporter asked Smith if he felt guilty for what he did, and Smith casually responded, "No." After the brutal attack, Derek was hailed as a bit of a folk hero by some people, while others thought of him as a barbarian who stomped a young man's face in while children watched. He is set to go to trial in the summer of 2017. Number 3. The Bloody Metro. On September 18, 1974, the police were called to a subway station in the Paris Metro. In one of the subway cars, blood was splattered all over the back seats and windows. Using forensic technology available at the time, they determined it was human blood, but they weren't sure where the blood came from. There were several people who went missing the day of and in the days leading up to the discovery of the bloody subway car. However, no other body parts were found, so they were not able to confirm whose blood it was. One thing the police did conclude was that there was enough blood in the subway car that whoever it came from was probably dead. 3 weeks later, another empty subway car was found covered in blood. Again, it was human, but it was a different blood type from the blood found in the first subway car. This happened 8 more times over the next year, and then the blood splatterings suddenly stopped. Several times a man wearing a hat, glasses, and a trench coat was seen walking out of the blood-splattered cars, but he always managed to leave the station without anyone stopping him. Mysteriously, no other traces of the bodies, like bones or tissues, were ever found. The police speculate that the victims were drained of their blood elsewhere, and then the killer, or someone working with the killer, went to a subway station, waited for an empty train car, and then splashed the blood around the car. In the early 2000s, the DNA that was found in the cars was tested by cold case investigators. They were able to identify 3 of the victims. All 3 were homeless people who went missing 8 to 12 hours before their blood was found. The identities of the other 7 victims are still unknown, as is the identity of the Bloody Splasher, as he was called in the media. Number 2. The Metropolitan Railway Disaster. On October 1, 1880, passengers aboard the last train of the night on the Metropolitan Railway in London, England, were surprised when their train came to a sudden stop in the tunnel. For several minutes, the train didn't move. A passenger on the train decided to open the door and see why the train had stopped. When he did, the passengers heard several dogs barking in the darkness. Then a dog jumped onto the car and bit down hard on the man's arm. Everyone in the passenger car started screaming as 2 more dogs jumped into the car, which was carrying 7 other people besides the man who was bitten. The dogs were a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, a Rottweiler, and a German Shepherd, and all of them were foaming at the mouth. The passengers tried to run through the dark subway tunnel. However, all of them were chased down by the 3 dogs. After the attacks, the 3 dogs ran off into the darkness of the tunnel and presumably back onto the streets of London. 2 passengers and the train's conductor, who had stopped the train because he saw the dogs on the tracks, died as a result of their wounds hours later. The attack was before the discovery of the rabies vaccine, and at that point in history no one had ever survived a rabies infection. Unfortunately, dying from rabies is a horrible way to go. First, victims develop flu-like symptoms. Then their mood changes and they become more aggressive. They also develop insomnia, an intense fear of water, and they experience vivid hallucinations. They die because they drown in their own saliva or blood about 7 to 10 days after the onset of the flu-like symptoms. 3 months after being attacked, all 8 passengers were dead. In total, 11 people were killed in the rabid dog attack, making it the worst wild animal attack in London's history. Number 1. The Toronto Phantom. On January 3, 1999, 23-year-old Quentin Town was killed when he fell off the platform in front of a moving subway car at the Bathurst station in Toronto, Ontario. After the death, the police reviewed the security footage, and they were shocked to see a man dressed in black pants and a black hoodie run up behind Quentin and push him off the platform before running out of the view of the camera. However, none of the witnesses or the driver of the subway train saw anyone push Town. 2 years later, on April 12, 2001, an officer with the Toronto Transit Commission Special Constable Services was watching the CCTV feeds when she saw a figure dressed in black clothes run across the platform and push a woman in front of a moving train at St. Clair Station. The victim, 31-year-old Zara El-Mahdi, was pronounced dead at the scene. On October 23, 2001, there was another pushing incident. This time there was an officer patrolling the subway platform at the Spadina station. However, he did not see anyone dressed in black on the platform, but he was spotted on the CCTV footage pushing 33-year-old Joan Spearman in front of a moving train. After the third assault, the pushings stopped as mysteriously as they started. The police have never been able to identify the figure in the dark clothes, and believers in the supernatural speculate that the phantom pusher was a violent poltergeist. Subscribe for more.